let's take a quick look at what is going on with the Marxist mob as well. You know, we've seen a bit of a change in Seattle after the mayor had these Marxist protesters show up at her house. Oh, she was very upset about that. After that happened, she decided that she would put concrete barriers around around Chazistan. Seattle Mayor Ginny Durkin sent heavy machinery to remove concrete barriers around the CHOP Autonomous Zone and called for a probe of the council member who sent them there and showed up at her house. This is a council member who is essentially a Marxist, Kashwama Sawant, a member of the Socialist Alternative, a national political party, as a matter of fact. And the Seattle mayor was very upset about this. Seattle can and should peacefully demonstrate, but should not put families and children at risk, meaning her family and her children. Oh, the other people that were already in that area that got taken over, that's okay. She says, instead of working to make true change, this council member, Sawant, continues to choose political stunts. I thought this was all about political stunts. Tonight, she did so without regard for the safety of the mayor and her family. She was the one who was leading that attack. When we come back, we're going to talk about the lawyers in St. Louis and show you some new pictures you haven't seen before. All right, in the last segment of the show here, I want to talk a little bit about the violence that we've seen. I mentioned just before we went to break how the Seattle mayor had a change of heart. She thought it was just a big street party, remember? Oh, it's just a lark, it's everything. And then the mob showed up at her house. Oh, well, that's different. This Marxist councilwoman, a Socialist Workers Party or whatever, Socialist Alliance, I think is what it was. It's a political party. And, she was saying that what happened is, we had a shootout, the latest one, in western Chazistan. She said it highlights capitalism's brutality. There you go. Council member Kashwama Sawant, Socialist Alternative. She said, while we await details of this tragic killing, it highlights capitalism's brutality and endemic violence. Kind of reminds me of Monty Python's Holy Grail, right? You have King Arthur show up with his coconuts. Actually, he didn't. He had a guy there that made the sound of horses trotting, right, with the coconuts. And he gets involved in a discussion with these guys. And they say, we're not under you. We're an autonomous collective, kind of like Chazistan. And then he goes, stand up when I'm talking to you. He goes, look, help, I'm being repressed. Can see the violence inherent in the system. Well, these people in Chazistan, this autonomous collective, they're about to see the violence inherent in the system, you can bet, because they've had about enough of it. Once the violence gets directed at the mayor, then she gets serious about that. And, of course, we've had a lot of violence that's been happening lately. We've had, you see at Infowars.com, a story about this is in Utah, a Black Lives Marxist Antifa rioter shoots into a truck with a pistol. Shocking video out of Utah shows a Black Lives Marxist radical firing a pistol into an SUV attempting to get through the mob that was blocking the road. The SUV suddenly accelerated, tossing several extremists aside as it zoomed across the intersection and sped away. However, if you slow this down, you see that this person shot into the car before they zoomed away. And we had similar footage of a police vehicle. The police vehicle turns on the lights and is honking the horn and everything. These people are jumping on the car, beating the police car and so forth. And then he speeds away, much to their surprise, with no deference to the people who were trying to break into his car. And as he got away, they showed that they had busted out the back window. You do have a right to protect your life. Zoomed in and slowed down, the video clearly shows rioters pulling a gun and shooting under the truck before it attempts to escape. And the driver, who is in his 60s, was shot, taken to a local hospital, underwent surgery, non-life-threatening injuries, fortunately enough. And, of course, the guy who shot him, dressed in black, wearing a mask, not the Fauci mask, but the Antifa mask and so forth. We've also had in Northeast Philadelphia an arson suspect accidentally set himself on fire outside the house that he was trying to burn down. It's kind of like that video clip we saw, the guy trying to climb up on top of a statue. I think it was in London. It's a pretty high statue. He nearly gets up to the pedestal and then loses it, falls unfortunately, to the concrete below head first. A little bit of schadenfreude there. But yeah, this guy is trying to burn down a home, and he sets himself on fire instead. Which brings us to the situation of the St. Louis lawyers. I thought it was kind of funny. My only comment about it when I looked at it was, it's like, okay, well, these are lawyers. They typically don't use guns to defend themselves. They typically use pens. And they can be much more deadly with a pen than with a gun. Because you look at the way the guy is holding the gun. I said, it looks like he's never held this before. He might be left-handed. But he was still, at one point in time, he's just holding it by the end, and the wife is just waving the muzzle around kind of indiscriminately. And I said, you might want to get some legal advice about muzzle control and other things like that. And really, everybody should be thinking about this. And that's why it's a good point for us to come back and take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Because they went on with Tucker Carlson, and he told his side of the story, and more pictures have come out about that. And, of course, it's been politicized by a lot of different people. You saw only the perspective of the mob that was there at the time. But I mentioned this, and I mentioned the odd way in which they were handling the guns, looking like they had just recently purchased them, had not taken any classes on it, had not done anything in terms of learning how to use these things. And that's a real key thing. We're in a situation now where anybody could be in that, just like we talked about the guy in Utah. All of a sudden, you're driving down a road, and the road is blocked by people. They start to attack your car. You're trying to get out of there. And I've talked about this in the past. Take a look. You can go on YouTube, and you can see people talking about the legal issues involved here. At what point are you going to be able to defend yourself, defend your property, and so forth? You can't run over people just to keep them from damaging your car. If they are breaking through the windows, however, you have a reasonable expectation your life is in danger. You have a legal right to defend yourself. And, of course, there's always the expression, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. In other words, if your life is really in danger and you judge it to be in danger, go ahead and do what you think you need to do to defend yourself. And then you can defend yourself in court later if necessary. That's always the rule. But there's other things to keep in mind because you don't want to have that kind of legal hassle. And, waving a gun around indiscriminately, pointing it at people, that can get you in a lot of legal trouble. It remains to be seen whether that's going to happen with these people. St. Louis Circuit Attorney is now looking at that and considering it. And, of course, there's going to be a lot of political considerations based on this as well. But he was on the Tucker Carlson show, and I want you to hear what he had to say and see the pictures of this. Because when you look at this and the pictures that they showed of the gate, this is a gated area. And this mob broke down that gate. One side of the gate is broken open, and one side is just twisted metal. And the entire property in that neighborhood, all the property there is private, including the streets, including the sidewalks, according to the couple's attorney. And so they were on their property, and they had violently broken down the gate. And then let's go to video clip number 1, and this is his side of the story. Video clip number 1.
Describe for us, if you would, why you believed you and your wife were threatened by these 300 people in your yard.
Well, Tucker, you got to understand, my house sits right on the edge of a road called Kings Highway, and our private place is Portland Place, where my wife and I were preparing to have dinner, maybe 70 feet from the gate. By the time we looked up and we saw the marchers coming down Kings Highway and getting loud, we looked over at the gate, and there's no police there. Our private security wasn't there. Nobody's there. And I look over at my wife, and I see all these people outside the gate, and then the gate bursts open. People start coming in, and then a flood of people start coming in. They're angry. They're screaming. They've got spittle coming out of their mouth. They're coming towards the house. And, on June the 2nd of this year, the protests in downtown St. Louis went violent instantly. People, the looting and violence and rioting. I watched on live TV the 7-Eleven in downtown St. Louis from the moment the first window was broken throughout the looting process till the fire was started and then till the fire fully engaged the building, and nobody came that entire time. I looked over at my wife and I said, oh my God, we're absolutely alone. There's nobody here to protect us but us. That was the same night retired police captain David Doran was murdered. When I saw that mob come through the gate with their rage and their anger, I thought that we would be overrun in a second. By the time I was out there with my rifle, the people were 20 or 30 feet from my front wall. I've got a low wall that separates the house from my front yard.
All right, let's hold it right there because we're running out of time. Again, I think he had a legitimate case to defend himself. You can, make sure that you're trained, make sure you understand the circumstances, but he had the right. They were on his property. They'd broken down the gate. And I was very disappointed to see the Libertarian Party chair jump in and defend these Marxists who were, first of all, had no respect for private property, joining in with the people who have no respect for the Second Amendment, and obviously doesn't understand the non-aggression principle. Oh, that's right. They purged that out of the Libertarian Party last time, right? The fact that you have a right to defend yourself, but you're not going to initiate something. These other people had initiated getting on his property and threatening him, not aggressing against another person's or another person's property. And yet this is nothing new. This guy said, well, this appears to be a Class D felony, knowingly exhibiting in the presence of one or more persons a weapon. Come on. This is the Libertarian Party today? Yeah, it's become a political hack group, quite frankly. Like I said the other day, they accepted John Bolton. They said, well, hey, we got our differences, and it's an election year, and he doesn't like Trump or Biden, so he's good with us.